Is it fine?
It's good.
For the world, I've always been there out.
More of the women will get to know I'm alive, so yes, why not?
Of course there is someone like that out there. Haven't you watched Dil To Pagal Hai? Don't be stupid. For everyone there is one person. That's what Yash Chopra said, and I believe him completely.
We decided to go and stay together. My mother called him up and said,
I have bought crockery and utensils for the Babu, hoping that he would get married. He doesn't understand anything about it. Why don't you come and choose what you want?
My parents never knew a boy would sit like this, wearing makeup in front of the camera. They didn't know anything. Only thing which bothers me is that no one should say anything to my parents.
I came out of the closet first to my mom.
My dad has no idea about this yet. I at times feel that if I tell him right now that you know what, I'm into women, he'll be like, tomorrow I'm coming tomorrow, I'm taking you back and let's get you married.
As we approach our 15th year together, we want to thank our families and friends, straight and gay, for being by our side and making us feel like a normal couple.
our relationship has enriched us and made each of us a better version of ourselves.
A 21-year-old human looking to rent a 2 BHK apartment in a non-judgmental society. To stay with my family and a partner if I find him in future. I want a peaceful space where I can be myself, step in and out with whoever I like, and wear whatever I want to without any judgments.
I'm a 36-year-old Mumbai man looking for someone well settled, and he should have hobbies and be passionate about them. And he should most certainly love cats.
Dad, I like women, though I know you dream otherwise for me. Remember you told me not to live my life basis people's opinions? You will have grandkids, but I'd rather prefer her to have the baby. I'm bringing someone home for lunch, so be less excited and Dad, just be calm.
Well, 15th of August is Independence Day for all of us. We've all taken it for granted up until now. But we took a moment to consider the fact that for our LGBTQ brothers and sisters, this is perhaps the first Independence Day they're going to celebrate after they actually got freedom. And it was freedom from that extremely archaic law that the Supreme Court tossed out last year. But while the Supreme Court has just removed one impediment, there's so much more for us to do. The idea of truly being an open society that doesn't judge, doesn't bully, that doesn't segregate people based on who they love or who they want to love. There's so much more work to be done to actually treat people from the LGBTQ community like anybody else, to make the couples feel welcome. Perhaps at some point also in our future, legalize marriage for everyone, legalize adoption for everyone, one step at a time. And in partnership with the Times of India, Mirror now brings you Out and Proud, which is the Times of India making space in its classified section for members of the LGBTQ community to put out messages, to celebrate their anniversaries, to actually maybe put out a classified looking for a partner, a home or a spouse. It's part of that entire conversation to move us forward as a society. And in the studio with me, I have some wonderful people who've done plenty of work up till now. And the focus is going to be on Independence Day, what we can do to take the work forward. In the studio with me, and I'm so proud, Prince Manvendra Gohil, thank you so much. You've been an icon this entire time for so many people across the country. I'm very pleased to have you in the studio. We also have Anjali Gopalan of Naz Foundation, and Naz Foundation is home to so many people in the community. You've been a cocoon of sort of comfort, and you've fought for everyone, and I know that there's a lot of the fight still to go, and we're going to talk about that. Harish Iyer, of course, our audience doesn't need an introduction to Harish Iyer. We're all familiar with him. Onir is an Indian film and TV director, and we'll talk about what we can do in mass media to sort of, make the stories more commonplace. and remove the idea of what is normal and what is not normal. And Apsara Reddy, India's first transgender politician, joins us out of Chennai. We would have loved to have her in the studio today, but she couldn't be with us for whatever reason. But I want to just open up this conversation. Anjali, I'll start with you. It was a really long fight for the Naz Foundation. It was a fight that started with you. But when you look at where we are right now as a society, what would you like, ideally, society to do next? What is our next step?
Listen, I think all that has happened is that homosexuality has been decriminalized.
Yes.
The rights of the community haven't been talked about, spoken about. No one wants to even go down that path. And the thing is that in a democracy, how can you deny rights to some people based on who they want to be with? If it's not criminal, why are we not automatically giving everyone the same rights? So I think, of course, it's going to be a long battle, because when you talk about things like marriage and adoption and all of that, it's never easy. So the way people think about these issues, so we need to bring about change in the way people are thinking about people from the LGBTQI community. We can't forget the I part, the intersexed part of this community, which somehow gets forgotten. So I think it's going to be a long battle, because when you're trying to change minds, it's a slow process.
Yes.
Therefore, laws need to be strong, because laws will protect, laws will make it happen, even if people are having a hard time accepting.
But the truth is, even in the Supreme Court judgment, the Supreme Court had instructed the government of India to write out non-discriminatory laws. Those laws have not been written.
No, of course not.
Several other laws have been written,
of course,
but those laws
but
have
not
been
this.
written.
And that's what we need. I think everybody should be under the same umbrella. Why should certain people be given benefits? We are in a democracy. All of us are citizens of this country, and all of us should have the same rights.
Yes. You know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg had said in one of her arguments, she said, I do not ask for any favors for my gender. All I ask is that our male counterparts take their boots off our necks. And I suppose on some level we're on that same conversation now. We're not asking, no one's asking for special treatment. We're just saying, take your boots off our necks so we can live normal. You know, whatever you are affording everybody else, just give us the same thing, right? That's the ask right now. If you were to actually put forward personally for you, when you work and you've done so much work, when you look at what society is thinking at this point, what would you like the next step to be? What do you want people to start becoming sensitive about?
I think, see, as Anjali has pointed out, I mean, being a democratic country, I mean, we all have equal rights. We all want to live equally. We don't want any special favors. We don't want reservations or, be treated specially. I think it's important that we are not subject to any kind of stigma and discrimination for who we are, and we should have the right to enjoy our freedom, which has been given to us.
If I may ask you this, everyone knows the story about how you're the first Indian royal, per se, to have come out as gay. There is a backstory there. You'd hidden this from your family until you had an emotional breakdown.
Right.
Could I ask you about that? What happened there?
Yeah. See, we are all living in that fear, because even though there was a kind of a misunderstanding that to be gay in India was a crime. It was never a crime. It was the homosexual act which was the crime. But we are always being told that, oh, it's something bad, it's been a taboo, and we don't even look at our past about Kama Sutra and Khajuraho, and all is forgotten. And we live in such a hypocritical country with so much of bigotry and all. So all that pressurized me so much that I was forced to live a double life. And that was not me. I mean, I have always wanted to be an honest individual. And that caused me to have this mental breakdown, and that's how it was.
And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because a lot of times people watching at home don't realize why this is important.
Yeah.
Because they don't realize what sort of a toll it takes on an individual to pretend all the time.
Yes.
We were talking about that case in Chennai where this young person of 20 or 21 committed suicide because he wrote in his suicide note, I cannot pretend anymore. And it was the toll that it takes emotionally. And there are millions of people perhaps in the country right now as we speak, even after this law has been removed, who are still pretending.
True.
So again, for parents, and let's assume that they're listening right now, parents who assume, and they do this more for the girls than the boys,
Yes.
why can't you just be normal? Kyun karte ho tum aisa? What is your message to them?
Yeah, my message is very clear to the parents that accept the children the way they are without giving them certain compartmental attention that, oh, you are like this and why you are like that. I mean, allow them to be who they are, give them the love, and I mean, I'm sure if the parents give them the love, and they would be a better individuals than if they are pressurized to do something.
What was the change in your quality of life once you came out about who you are?
I mean, it really relieved me a lot of stress, and kind of I was first time was able to have the freedom to be who I am, rather than being kind of told that what you should be doing and what is expected from you. And of course, it was a challenge. It was difficult. There was a lot of backlash. I had actually broken a lot of protocols and disappointed a lot of people. But then I have the right to be what I am. Why should I go on what other people have to tell me what I'm supposed to do?
Were you called selfish?
I would say I was selfish because I wanted
to. Did people
do...
say that? Oh, why are you being so selfish? Why can't you just put up with it for the family name or for our societal,
exactly.
You're just choosing your happiness over everybody else's.
Yeah, I mean, people did say that, like, I mean, you brought shame and humiliation and all. I said, where is the shame and humiliation? I mean, why don't you look at this culture? Our Indian culture has always been, I mean, when I talk about culture, when I give instances of Kama Sutra and all, we have the country which had the oldest sex encyclopedia. What more do you want me to tell you about it? So it's just bigotry. It's nothing else.
It's just bigotry. And actually, the interesting thing is, if we look at all of the former British colonies, they have identical laws when it comes to this. So it's not really something that it's not to us. This is something the British taught us, and everybody seems to think that it's an Indian thing. It's not an Indian thing.
It's not Indian, yeah.
But could I just very quickly add to that? It's this understanding of what is normal and what is abnormal. This fact that we hear people say all the time, that people who are gay are not normal. But the point is that for people who are gay, it is really normal to be gay. It's as natural to be gay as it is for someone to be straight.
It's the word normal, in fact, that causes the problem, right?
Yeah. I think normal is the biggest stereotype. So when we say we need to fight stereotypes, I think we need to fight the word normal as a stereotype.
Yes, because technically, and in psychology, they teach you that there's no such thing as normal.
Exactly.
There's no one yardstick of measure as this is a normal individual. Everybody is odd and weird and quirky in their own way, I guess.
Thank God for that.
And Harish, I'm so happy to have this conversation with you now, especially when we're talking about the Times of India classifieds, because you come from a very traditional Tamil family, and your parents, when you came out to them, put out a classified ad for you, didn't they?
Yes.
What's the story there?
So, so they put out a classified ad, and there was, I got a lot of responses.
So your parents put out an ad asking for a groom for you.
The tensions remain the same. Like for any person, for that matter, if it's a girl child, then by the time the girl child is like 20, 21, you'll say, okay, kisse shaadi karegi? So the same thing was, I was 36. So now is the time that you have to get settled.
Yes.
So the word settled was to find a guy for me, a suitor for me.
Yes.
So my mother went on this thing, and she published this ad, and then I got a lot of suitors. Only thing is that I got too many suitors. I got like around 500 people writing to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
But this was a while ago.
This was in 2015.
So it was at a time when it was technically still criminal.
Yeah. And many people used to think at that time that homosexuality was a crime. I mean, that's what people assumed. But the truth was, as Manvendra rightly said.
But tell me something. When you did come out to your parents, and then your parents obviously would have taken some time to adjust, and there would have been all these, uncles and aunties and parties who had to be spoken to, about this. So it's not just the mom and the dad, right? There's all of this extended family who asks questions that have to be answered. So what was that like for you and for your parents? And when you put out the ad, so they were acknowledging this publicly. Did they get backlash?
They got a lot of backlash. My mother got a lot of backlash. She was called names on social media. And also, my ad was way too typical. Way too typical in the sense that it said that caste no bar, but I are preferred. So
You just have trouble finding the problem with this.
and I will tell you how that happened. So we were putting the ad, and my grandmother walked in. My party walked in the room, and my party looked at me, and she said, "Ki kya kar rahe ho?" She asked in Tamil, "Enna pan raha hai?" So I just responded saying, my mother responded saying, "We're putting an ad for Harish," and she was 84 years old at that time. So she said that pulleo ponno in tension illai ana ayyara irukkanum. Means it doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl, it needs to be an ayyar. So it was done in the spirit of humor, but obviously I understand
So
that
we can
the
actually
sentiments were
deck
hurt.
our prejudice then, and according
Yeah.
to priority, and decide what is the hardest of all. Onir, you've worked in popular media for a while, and there has been always this sort of baggage that we carry. The truth is that mass media has so much responsibility, and we've done so much wrong. The way the community is made fun of. All comedy is a man dressed like a woman, slapstick comedy, in all films, and the way we treat the entire community is appalling. How important will it be for us to move forward as a society, for films to perhaps look at this differently?
I think it's extremely important that not only like how the LGBT community is portrayed, even how in terms of how eve teasing, whole lot of things that's portrayed in cinema and very often justified that this is just entertainment, this is just for fun.
It's just for laughs,
without understanding that this is what the entire country is watching, which emulates what their heroes are mostly doing. And it's extremely disturbing as a gay person if I'm watching a film. I always say that I'm happy if I can laugh with you, but I'm not happy when you're laughing at me. And very often the portrayals are in a way which the comedy comes out of making fun of your identity. When there is a man and a woman walking hand in hand, no one laughs. But the fact that, and today, even after Article 377, I don't think there are too many of us who would walk around in the street hand in hand. Only I think day before yesterday, there were these two girls who were thrown out of the nightclub because people are still not accepting that we can love. In public, it is just an expression of love. Similarly, I think that is the same space, even if we look at some of the films that's happened post 377, somehow the romance, the physical part is deleted out of the gay relationships. We are all supposed to be...
Let me tell you something odd I just discovered. The most popular videos in India are pornographic videos. And of pornographic videos, it's what is called girl-on-girl action, which is two girls together, but not homosexual.
Yes.
So there's a difference there where these girls are there to basically from the male gaze, titillate from the male gaze, vis-a-vis girls who actually love each other. So there's this huge hypocrisy in what we do as a country.
By the way, is a worldwide phenomenon. All porn films have that mandatory love scene between two women.
Yeah.
It's what seems to be turning men on
Because
all the time.
also at the end of it, a man will join.
Exactly.
No, but I don't understand from you all, at some point when you were younger and perhaps just either discovering who you were, coming to terms with who you were before you told anybody, did you at some point watch something on television or watch a film that made you sort of cower down a little more because everybody around you was laughing and everybody thought it was funny and everybody thought that, and you just felt like, oh my God, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the butt of all jokes.
I remember this film called Mast Kalandar, which was a Hindi film, and it had Anupam Kher dressed in a very feminine. He was a villain, and he was dressed in very feminine outfits. And also we had Sadak, which was a Mahesh Bhatt film, where we had anyways transgendered people were demonized at that time, and around that time you had a transgender brothel owner.
Yes.
So I think that kind of demonized. I anyways was very scared. I was a transphobe. So for me to see something like that, it validated everything. And even when we speak about LGBT, we somewhere down the line, transphobia is so prevalent even within the LGBT circles.
Yes.
Intersex, the fact that we don't know about intersex at all within the LGBT circles itself, that's a big problem.
And I think the reverse is also true, because I remember when I was in college, and that's the point when I was also coming in terms with my sexual identity, I saw this film, My Beautiful Laundry, you know, and that exactly did, and that's why I always believe when people say that films are just entertainment, every film, you know, you carry a message is positive, and that film did that positive thing for me.
I want to bring in Apsara. Sorry, Apsara, for making you wait patiently. You're in Chennai, and thank you for joining us. I want to understand from you as well, picking up from what Harish said about what, you know, films portray transgender people as, but the common understanding is the fact that there is, you know, a sort of fear or a misunderstanding with the transgender community. Going forward, and you're now in public life, going forward, what would you want society to change? If there's a young transgender person right now, how would you want their lives to be different from yours?
I really feel transgender women nowadays are getting a lot more visibility and opportunity. But with it, I think there's a lot of prejudice from families. I think while the world, because of corporate social responsibility, because of, you know, exposure or whatever, are accepting people into employment and education, families are still not accepting transgender women. And my question, in fact, my appeal to families is that, you know, is your child's happiness less important than what society thinks of you? Or is your child's safety less important than, you know, whether you're painting the right picture of wedding and marriage? Because a lot of times parents shun their transgender girls, and there's a lot of sexual violence around the streets. The landlords who rent homes to them actually rape them, they turn tormentors. So I really feel parents should kind of have a dialogue with transgender kids and with LGBT individuals. And I think LGBT individuals should also make a lot more effort to have communication lines open with their families. It's easy to rebel, fight, walk away. But I think to have the parental embrace is the most important thing in the path to empowerment. In terms of films, Faye, I think most filmmakers walk back into the same closet they want to walk out of. I think Indian films and Indian television use, you know, animated transgender and gay characters in their you know, comic scenes on stand-up comedy acts and shows on Indian television. I think it's grossly unjust, because I think to paint somebody in a stereotypical way when we're trying so hard to break those barriers is unfair. And I think we need to have tougher laws, in fact, for the way in which media addresses us. In fact, you know, sometimes when regional vernacular newspapers, you know, address me in their photo captions, they use very derogatory terms. So I'd like to change that. I think media sensitization is very, very important. And also the government has a huge duty in making aware employees, government employees at airports and, you know, when doing paperwork for transgender and LGBT individuals, to sensitize government employees, because a lot of times in airports, before the law was passed, you know, I still had male on my passport, although I'd done my surgery many, many years ago. And I had to go through the frisking of the male security at airports. It was very, very humiliating. It was violatory in so many ways. So all that needs to change.
Well, Afsar, if I may ask you this, you know, you're now a politician. You're a very public champion, you know, of the entire movement. But it wasn't always like this, I assume. What was your story? When did you come out to your parents? What was their reaction like? What was that journey?
It was extremely tough way. I think I realized, because when I was 2 years old, that I felt very wrong in the male body. I used to cry myself to sleep. I felt God made girls, and just to punish you, He made boys. And I always felt that I was meant to be a girl. I felt very wrong in the male body. I always wanted to be like a girl, and I used to dress up in my mom's, you know, clothes as far as I can remember, 5, 6 years old. And whenever we had transgender women come, you know, to our home, either to, you know, ask for alms, or whether it was like in my grandparents' villages, I always liked transgender women. They were beautiful. For me, when people made fun of them, I felt really bad, because I really felt they were beautiful and they were human beings. And I felt that way. I felt like a woman myself. So for me, when I first relayed this to my parents, I was about 14 or 15. It was extremely emotional. It was, they had an entire family, the entire extended family come home, say the most unfair, cruel, harsh, baseless things. But I dealt with it in silence. I never actually responded, except to my mum, because I felt she needed to know and she needed to be part of my journey. And I said, I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to do something you're not comfortable with, but I want you to be on this journey with me. So I took her to a counselor when I was 16 in Hyderabad. It was a very bad experience, because the counselor herself said शादी कर लो तो ठीक हो जाएगा, or India में तो you know people will stone you to death, and all kinds of things. So very, very hard. And then I had to kind of, find literature online from this organization called PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, which is an international organization. And I kind of, worked on my mom for a while. It took me about 6 to 7 months to even allow them to start me get their permission to start hormones and, subsequently the surgery. It was very hard. There used to people used to come home and say, "Aap shaadi mein aa sakte ho, don't bring your child." Or isko mental hospital mein kyun, why don't you, put him in a mental hospital, or don't send him to, maybe in the salon or in the beauty parlor, he's getting spoiled. So there were all kinds of, narratives from relatives, from, people who were having conversations with my parents. But I was very firm that, I was going to be the same child. Every child is, God's special child, and we need the kind of space to evolve into who we want to be.
Asra, I also want to ask you about school and college. What was that like? Because at home you could, if your parents are protecting you, it's one thing, but when you go into school, and schools and colleges tend to sort of bracket everybody into girls and boys, and there has to be certain accepted behavior for girls and accepted behavior for boys. How did you navigate that world?
School was very hard for me, Faye, because I was ragged heavily in school. People said the most. I used to come back home and cry every single day, asking myself, "And what did I do? I mean, this is who I am. This is who I feel I'm right in the way that I am. I'm not harming anybody. I'm not violating anybody's space." Yeah, there were boys who used to lock me up in the toilet, say the most nasty things, try and trip me during sports day and things like that. It was very difficult. I think my mum and I had this conversation when I was in school once, and then she tried to come to school and speak to the principal, and I think the principal told her that, "Oh, but your son is very feminine, and you must tell him to behave himself." I think even the level of understanding at the teachers and at the school level is very, very low even now. I think we need to sensitize educationists a lot more. College was not as bad because I had moved abroad. I went to Australia to do my bachelor's. That's where I found my freedom. That's where I found my support systems. That's where I was able to, kind of evolve into who I wanted to be.
Well, and I can only wish that, everybody else, not just members of the LGBTQI community, but everyone has the strength that Apsara has displayed in that story. But here's another thing, and it's so important, the part that she read: teachers, doctors, priests. So many parents go to priests to sort of fix this problem, and of all religions.
I was a victim of that.
What happened?
So when I came out to my parents after this mental breakdown, my parents did accept.
I want to add something, Faye.
Yes, okay, go ahead, Apsara.
Faye, we talk about public life, we talk about politicians and the evolved. I mean, the circles that, once you're in an established career, you expect to come in contact with people who are reasonably evolved and exposed. My experience has been the worst in the evolved circles. In fact, soon after I had my surgery, I'd come back to India. I was very young, and I was in the media industry then, and I used to, have conversations with my colleagues and people. I used to go out and meet at events, and the first thing they would ask me is, "Oh, how do you have sex now? Or how does your, a particular organ in your body work?" They wouldn't dare ask that to a man or a woman. But they found it okay to ask that of a transgender woman. I feel that needs to change. We're not sex objects. We're not somebody who's, sold our shame and sold our dignity and sold our self-respect. So some of these conversations in the name of curiosity can also be very hurtful and harsh.
So I suppose the basic thumb rule is, don't ask this person anything you would not ask your teacher.
But I want to say something here.
Yes.
I think if we want to bring about change in attitudes, I think we have to talk openly about issues.
Yes.
For example, I'm a trainer. That's so much a part of my work. And I know that every time I do a training, and I do a lot of work on sex and sexuality, of course you go in with the fear that, oh, they're going to judge me. They're going to say, if she can say all this, then God knows what she must be doing. But the point is, the more we talk about things openly, the more we're going to be able to change attitudes. I'm not saying that people won't hold it against you. And it's terrible for people, especially because the trans woman is so visible. They bear a lot of brunt of the way people ask. But I firmly believe we need to be open about these issues.
Doesn't that then come back to what we were talking about of doctors and teachers and priests and all of these people prepared with the right answers?
Absolutely.
Because the truth is, people are asking each other, and that's a really
and everyone knows only what they know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you were talking about what happened with you.
So priests. So like coming to priests, I mean. My parents thought that maybe a priest can give a better understanding so that I can become straight, you know, kind of. So, and I went to several of them, and some of them said, oh, write Ram, 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 and you'll become okay. One of them said, you become vegetarian. And another one said, do yoga. And I did everything possible what they said. And I became more gay than I became straight.
So actually, you know, this is something we should, because every time, Harish, we do a conversation about homosexuality, I get the same question. These people have said that if you do yoga, that you will get cured, that, you know, if you get admitted in certain hospitals, they can cure. The idea of curing this at all.
See, first of all, it's not a disease. If it's not a disease, what is there to cure?
Yes.
Secondly, when we are speaking about education, when we are speaking about reforms, we cannot win the politics of inclusion by excluding people. So we need to include, so whenever we speak about sex education, sexuality should be a part of it.
Correct.
When we are speaking about safety, bullying should be a part of it. So what we need right now is sensitivity education, which involves everything. Whether you're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or Dalit, or you are or you're gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, whether you're a trans man, trans woman, intersex, I think everything, schools need to educate people about everything. Because if my one identity, even if one identity of mine gets attacked, my identity, I'm getting attacked. So whether if I'm not attacked because I'm possibly gay, but if I'm getting attacked because I'm Muslim, or if I'm getting attacked because I'm Christian, or because I'm getting attacked because I'm Dalit, still I'm getting attacked. So I think what we need is sensitivity, comprehensive sensitivity education in schools, colleges, offices, everywhere possible.
You know, I was actually shocked to find out that in the Indian MBBS that trains our doctors, they spend less than 6 months apparently talking about mental health and talking about issues like this, whereas your family doctor could be a great source
Less than 7 pages. That's
less
all.
than 7 pages. Could be a great source of information to families who are looking for information at that point.
By the way, the Supreme Court has said this should happen.
It's
not us. It's the Supreme Court who has said it. And we have to understand that if we want to bring about change, you have to do it at that level where curriculums are changed. School. Right? School, college, doctors' curriculums, teachers' training curriculums, all these need to change. Or at least to include all of this. Because now when we're looking at people going in for any reason into a medical, a medical setup, if you are from the community or you're visibly trans, that's what becomes the focus of the intervention, not because you've come in for some kind of medical help. And the way they are treated, the way they are spoken. We have counselors telling people who have come in for HIV testing, if you're going to, what do you expect if this is what you're going to do? This is a problem. Yes, it happens all the time,
we are
even
working
today.
for HIV, so we both know what happens. You know,
horrible.
They are put to a lot of, you know, you're going for testing,
torturous.
And you're ridiculed by the counselor, doctor, and that person will not like to go for testing again. You know.
You know, there was a story also that we talked about, that the fact that one of the medical associations had decided that they will not allow members of the LGBTQIA community to be blood donors.
No, exactly.
Because if they saw it as a higher risk.
No. That was something that was told to all hospitals, to all blood banks, that they should not accept blood from the gay community. Now the thing is, whether the person is from the gay community or not,
you need to
the
test
testing is the same. The process is the same.
I'll be very skeptical about taking blood from that blood bank if they don't test that blood. Because anyone could be HIV positive.
I also
or
feel
they have
that
any other
illness.
Also, when we are talking about this not wanting special treatment, I feel at the same time it's important, like especially in the industry, when one is talking about be it women empowerment, you know. Similarly, I feel, you know, when you're from the LGBT community, there has to be effort from everywhere also to empower, to make a little bit effort that, okay, we need to create space so that the voice of the LGBT community, be it in the film industry, be it in the other industries, given that, because for generations they've been discriminated.
So let me ask you a question that's likely to upset you. Where people normally say कि entertainment में TV, film, beauty, design, fashion में चलेगा. Like there are a lot of members of the community in this industry, and there's an assumption that that's perhaps a safer, more comfortable place to be. Is that true?
I feel that actually it's something that I can be proud of, that our industry is more accepting, let me put it that way. But I think, again, this is also part of stereotype. How, today it is a matter of pride that, a sportswoman, she's come out. And I think there are more people, there are industrialists, the more people come out, feel free to be who they are, we will just realize that the rainbow palette is much more diverse than it's
And this is the
made out
beautiful
to be.
thing, because research tells us that 10%, right?
Yeah.
On an average, 10% of every, so any random collection of people, 10% of that random collection is non-heterosexual. That's an easy way to put it. Which means that the community is among us in boardrooms, in parliament, in state assemblies, they're politicians, in the army, they're doctors, they're everywhere. So consider what an unfree society we are, that so many of them are still hiding. When we celebrate Independence Day, we haven't really created a space that's safe enough for them to come out and just be themselves.
And despite the Supreme Court judgment, when the Army General says that we will not accept it, and absolutely not.
Yeah. And also, what the Times Out and Proud campaign has done is it has also encouraged many other people to take notice and to do a lot of other positive things that is required. But what we want now is to go beyond tokenism. We do not want just we just don't want to be called on a special day and have our posters plastered, and where after that they would come and tell us things like इसके बारे में तुम यहाँ आए हो बात करने के लिए, but just don't publish this outside. We don't want outsiders to know about this. Many corporates do that, and that's something that's very annoying.
One has to sometimes even sign. I had to do it. You go for a talk with the corporate, and they said non-disclosure because we don't want people to know that we are having this.
How do you celebrate
inclusion?
I mean, but I think I have a slightly different take on this. I think we need to worry a little bit about the overall environment. For example, it is still very hostile.
Yes.
So those who can come out should, and those who are not feeling safe to come out should not. There is this incredible pressure on the community to be out and proud, to be open about their sexuality. But the fact is, we never ask straight people, what is your sexual? That is not something, no one is asking you, are you straight? So I think there is a reason why many people feel that they can't come out.
Not about people, about corporates.
No, I'm talking about the general environment. I'm just saying,
but I think the point Anjali ji is making is very important. And this is what I was talking to you about. The sort of mental health pressure. And we know suicide rates are higher, depression rates are higher, drug abuse rates are higher among the LGBTQIA community. Because of the pressure on mental health that it takes from either hiding or being constantly bullied. And the bullying that Apsara was talking about.
And even the pressure of coming out, which
being locked in bathrooms, being teased by boys or girls, or as it is, having your clothes taken off out of curiosity from other children. This sort of thing is traumatic.
In fact, Faye, I want to add that like post this law changing last year, I am getting so many calls coming. I mean, I don't know, Anjali, how about you, but I'm running an organization in Gujarat called the Lakshya Trust, and I do a lot of counseling, and the crisis has increased. The crisis has tremendously increased. There's so many people who want to come out, and they want to tell their parents, and they are all fearing there will be
the support system is not there.
So listen, there are no safe houses. It's pretty much like if there is a problem when you come out for whatever reason, there is no place that someone can go to. It's very much like what happens with women who are trying to fight harassment in the house, even sexual harassment. It's all very well to say we have a good law in place, But where are the services to make sure that it works? Problem is in the implementation. It's always been an issue. So then people will tell me, oh, but the community can easily fight for its. It's not so easy.
It's not so easy.
Every individual is an individual.
I think also specifically the transgender community, and we'll take this question. We'll take this question back to Apsara, where we've had conversations on this channel, with other members of the transgender community who said they got either thrown out of their houses, they wouldn't get employed by anybody, they wouldn't get jobs, they would either wind up begging or in sex work or both, because society doesn't leave any choices. It doesn't matter, it doesn't ask how talented this person is, how hardworking, how much integrity they have, what they could do, what they could learn. None of these questions are even explored. You're just left with two choices on the table. And I think that as a society, we have to ask ourselves, how can we be that
Absolutely.
cool? Apsara, go ahead.
Faye, the most important point is when transgender women are thrown out of their homes, it's the other transgender women or LGBT members who house them and kind of groom them into life and kind of get them back on their feet. But that now is being discussed as it's going to be criminalized. Living arrangements of transgender women are going to be looked at with a scanner, or begging is going to be criminalized according to the new transgender bill. And I feel that's really sad, because without education they can't get jobs. There has to be reservation in education for transgender individuals. Though LGBT individuals who are thrown out of home, I think if you don't have reservation in education, they can't access jobs. And if there's no medical subsidy, to become a trans man or a trans woman is an expensive process. We will continue to get ridiculed and bullied because of the way we look, or in transitioning we don't always look glamorous or beautiful and convincing. So medical subsidies are very important. And I think also job reservations, because most corporates, even if they want to employ transgender women, they make it a point to make it about CSR, or as if they're doing us a favor. I'm saying give us equal employment opportunity in terms of, judge us on our merits. Make the workplace a sensitive enough place where you don't say, oh, you're transgender, so I'm giving you employment. Treat us as a talent pool. These things have to change.
Things indeed have to change. And Anjali, I want to ask all of you this: is there a solution? And we all have now the ICCs of the Vishaka guidelines in all of our offices, in most colleges at least. If the sexual harassment laws were expanded to include all discrimination,
it needs to also become gender neutral.
Yes,
if they make it gender neutral,
so
all our problems will be solved.
Bullying, discrimination of any sort in any
just
space.
change woman to person. That's all. That's all that is needed.
But technically now the ICC applies only to harassment of a sexual nature. It doesn't apply
and the assumption is that only women can be harassed by a man.
Men. Yes.
Like a man can't be harassed by another man, a woman can't be harassed by another woman, which we all know is not true.
Or that women can't harass
Or
men.
that women can't harass men. That's a big one. That's a big one. So I think,
and if we truly want an equal society, I believe that is among the first laws that we should make gender neutral.
Yes.
Both, you're right, from the victim and the perpetrator's point of view, it should just be person versus person. And if you face any sort of harassment or discrimination, because technically, for example, people of different castes, you have the SC/ST Atrocities Act, and you have this against sexual harassment, but we've written nothing to protect those from these. Because the problem is, you can be a cool boss who hires someone and says, I now have this open space, but you don't know if that individual is being bullied in the bathroom.
And that's not institutionalized, you see.
Yes.
So unless that happens, we'll be in trouble.
And it's not about reservation. It's about we need to start using the US term, which is affirmative action. The truth
you
is
and
that,
I might start using the affirmative action. Everybody else is still going to call it transformation.
because that is what it is. It is not about reserving a few seats for people. It is about correcting what was wrong.
For me, it's equality and inclusiveness. I cannot imagine using any other term, or at least in my thinking. That's the way it has to be. And how else can it be?
And I've had this conversation with a few people, they would say, okay, I'm okay hiring someone, but I don't want any of the janjat that comes with it. So I want this person to dress and fit in a certain way, especially front-facing jobs, right? Jobs in hotels. And, Keshasuri has made an exception, but most of these jobs, I met someone who was fired from the kitchen of a 5-star because he had long hair, and they said, it's not okay. well as the women are allowed to have long hair. So prejudice is on this level that we need to perhaps start fixing if we truly want to build an equal society.
Definitely. I'm doing a lot of diversity and inclusion talks. I go to a lot of corporate houses and I talk to their employees and I try to sensitize them and to make them prepared or to have somebody from the sexual diversity to be part of it.
Because a lot of times it get blamed on the customers. Our customers will not be comfortable, so we can't do this.
Yeah, I mean, many times. In fact, I was also I was trying to help out a security agency who wanted to hire transgender for even as security guards, and they were ready to be security guards, but then again the same issue came. How will the customers look at them?
Actually, I know like TV anchors, friends who were never comfortable talking about their sexuality because they thought that they'll lose their job as an anchor, popular anchor. So
there was this funny thing that happened. I was invited to speak in a certain college, and there were some trans people also over there. So the whole college was sensitized. Like the teachers were very pro. You had the principal who was she was speaking about transgender rights, and everything was there. But when the trans person was a little late and she couldn't reach on time, the trans person, once she entered the gate, she wasn't allowed because they sensitized everybody. They forgot to sensitize the chowkidar. So if it's not done in complete, in the sense that if you don't educate the least common denominator as well as the person who is on the top ranks, everybody, you don't achieve anything.
So respect is a very learned behavior, right? And in our society, which is so stratified on religious, caste, class lines, that has to happen from the time you take your first tiny steps, as far as I'm concerned, in the womb, but at least from the school system. Unless we do that, we are not going to learn to respect anyone who is different from us. That, I think, is critical. We need to include these kind of workshops, sessions, teaching in the school system from KG. From pre-KG, whatever it is. Our children have to learn to respect, period. Just respect.
And I think behavior is also a taught trait many a times. So like for instance, I had my niece who painted this photo where she had to paint family. She painted this photo and she had me and another boy. And when she was asked, so she actually put labels on that. She said mama, and the other one she said boy mommy. So for her it was very simple. There was no confusion in her head, but I think discrimination is something that we learn, that we teach our children. Children usually don't discriminate.
Also this, I think there's so much of stereotype about what is feminine. Like the fact that we as a tradition used to wear jewelry, have long hair, men used to dress up. By Victoria, they used to use powder, lipstick, everything. So, every time a gay man has to be portrayed, I keep getting scripts where when they're young, they're either playing with dolls or dressing up as women. But what decides that playing with dolls is feminine, and the minute a girl is playing football, that means she's become a man. So I think we really need to also question these gender stereotypes that we have, that this is manly, this is womanly.
Well, so I always say this when we're talking about empowering women. And I say when you walk into a room, if you don't see women in that room, or if there's only 1 or 2 out of, say, 15 or 20, you should ask yourself why this room is not representative of society. Because technically we should be 50% of society. We're not, because so many girls
we are not even 33%.
Get killed in the womb, and so we're not half the population. But every room where decisions are being made, every room where people are working, we should ask ourselves, why aren't there as many women? But we should also ask ourselves, why aren't there as many members of the LGBTQIA community who are not comfortable enough to be open? Because they're probably there, but we've not created safe spaces. So if I just put it into a nutshell what we talked about, it's about formalizing the integration in our syllabus, in our schools, with doctors, with teachers, with counselors, with people who influence our family lives. Because it's going to be a while before we reach every single family, but we can reach these formal institutions. It has to come from the government. The government has to write laws that outlaw discrimination quite clearly and say that you are not allowed to discriminate. And all of the other programs that we do, which is the family planning programs, the Anganwadi programs, the AIDS programs, have to be sensitive to all kinds of people. You can't in your head, you can't have Anganwadi workers and, primary health workers who have this idea of what is right and what is wrong, because then they'll perpetuate that idea into society. But I just want to give each of you an opportunity to just put something out there that you would want society to just think about, if not anything else, on Independence Day to take us one step closer. Onir?
So for me is that I think India should enjoy the independence with us as part of the Indian. We are also Indian citizens. We equally want to celebrate Independence Day, but enjoy the independence with us, and I think that will be the best way to enjoy it.
I feel that as a nation, I would like to see us celebrate love and accept other forms of love openly at public spaces, so that we're not afraid to express.
I would say that all of us needs to learn how to be more humane. It's about everything. It's who we are as a society, as a culture. How are we treating our women, children, animals? It doesn't matter what it is. It is how do we treat those who are different and considered to be less of.
Yes, beautifully said.
I personally feel that there's no freedom for some of us till there's freedom for all of us. And that includes people from the Dalit community, because there could be a queer person who's Dalit.
Yes.
So
the intersections
of society, that becomes extremely important, and that should also include animals. I mean, the more cruel you are towards other beings beyond cows. Cows are important, but beyond cows, all animals.
So you should then just extend that to mangroves, forests, and
mangroves. We need to be there for
anything which is living.
Anything that's living.
I think we need to be aware. We need to be alive to speak about discrimination. So mangroves and other things. Environment becomes most important.
Apsara, one message you want to put out on Independence Day to the whole country?
The entire country, I think we're a democracy. I think people are allowed to have divergent views, but I think don't criminalize and dehumanize us because you haven't been in our shoes and you haven't walked the path we've walked. It takes so much more strength to, put our real face and face the real world. You don't have to, believe everything that I say or, love us for who we are, but don't discriminate.
Don't discriminate. We're going to wrap this up here because we've run out of time. Thank you so much for spending time with me in the studio. It's been brilliant to have this conversation. And of course, along with the Times of India and the brilliant campaign that they're running, the idea is to talk about this as much as we can and to mainstream the stories and to mainstream the experiences. And we no longer want conversations about the LGBTQIA community to be some random feature story that's tucked away on the weekends. We'll talk about it on prime time so that these are ideas, these are thoughts, these are emotions that you become familiar with. And then every time you encounter someone, we're able to then be more humane, be more understanding, and be more accepting. Happy Independence Day. Thanks for watching.